Hey guys, this is kind of a check-in video in January, sort of talking about the stuff I've done speedrun-wise, mostly concerning the speedrunning challenge I'm doing, where I'm trying to do a game for every single animal that has a game starring it. So I just kind of want to talk about what games I've run this month, just in general, not even just concerning that challenge, and kind of talk about something that I don't think I really talked about in the video itself. When I announced this, which was kind of why I'm doing this and why I got the idea for doing this. So I'll start with that. This challenge kind of came as an idea based on I was looking at the things I'd been running for GDQ for the last 2 years. If you look at GDQ VODs, which is a pretty good website, for if you're interested in a runner and curious what they've run, or just curious if a game's been in GDQ before, it's a really nice resource for that. And just if you're looking for GDQ videos to watch, it's a good sort of launching pad for that. I was looking at that, and there's a very obvious trend, which is the last 2 years I've only speedrun animal games for GDQ. I ran Cat Lateral Damage, Pet the Pup, and Wild Animal Sports Day. And that wasn't really intentional. If you look at the stuff I submit for many of those years, I think only the most recent submission period was everything except for one game, animal games. And I don't think even that was intentional until I realized it afterwards. But I thought it kind of was a funny sort of thing. And I was like, I wonder how far you can take this, where you are playing only games for animals. I'm like, that's kind of a fun challenge, but that's fairly broad. I'm not sure if that's something I can really do something with, because that ends up getting to this point where if you look at animal games, the majority of them are dogs, they're cats, and foxes for some reason. I don't know why foxes. Dragons are obviously fairly popular for stuff like Spyro as well. But it felt like if I just do this animal challenge, it's going to be like, okay, I'm going to do like 30 dog games and like 30 cat games and like 20 fox games. And then I'm going to like do like, I'm going to skip out on all the interesting animals and like there's not going to be a variety. So at that point, I was considering like, hey, I can just make that the part of the challenge, is I can only do each animal once. And we'll do a speedrun for them once. And then after that, I have to move on to a different one. I can't just keep playing the same one over and over again. So that was the basis of the idea for doing this challenge, and I've stuck with that since then. I think then I was thinking about this all throughout December, so that I could announce it for the new year and move forward with it then. But now to kind of get into more of the specific stuff I'd been running. So the first game I did, the very first day of the new year, I basically had been practicing this beforehand just so I could do it as the first game of the new year, so I could start off with a game for it, immediately have something on the sheet that I'm tracking everything, and I'll put that in the description if you've not seen that yet, which is a kind of a nice thing to reference in terms of what I might be doing next and just things I have on there. And you can contribute stuff if you see a game that's not on there, sort of thing. But the first game I did was Narwhal Heist. Like I said, I've been practicing that pretty much last week of December. I've been practicing doing runs of that and looking for skips and just optimizing stuff for that. Unfortunately, it's not on speedrun.com, just based on it being an early access game. Even though the game itself is like, if you look at the updates for it, it's not been updated in like half a year, and I don't think they're really developing it anymore. So like, it is what it is at this point. As a game, and it's pretty static, so unfortunately they don't see it that way, so it's not on speedrun.com, but my video is still up and you can go. I'll put the playlist of all the animal runs I've done in 2020 in the description of this as well. And Narwhal is a really honestly interesting run in terms of you have to be very mindful of your camera. You can't it kind of limits where you can look, because the entire concept of the game, I guess I should start with that, is you have a giant narwhal horn in the middle of your FOV, and there's these vases everywhere. If you break any of the vases in it, like any of the levels, except for the tutorial level, the level ends and you have to restart from the beginning again. And that idea is just fun to me. I mean, it's a silly idea. It's like of course, like a narwhal has a giant horn. Why wouldn't it break stuff if it bumps into it with its horn, sort of thing. And just like the whole entire, you're running around stealing things and navigating all these levels. It's really fun. We found some cool skips for it. We found one that's like basically walking along the seam between these walls, between sections of the level, and just walking to the end. That you have to do some kind of funky platforming to get to, which is a lot of fun. And then there's also a smaller skip in the last level, which is by far the hardest level by a large margin, that you kind of do some weird movement on one of like the trampoline platforms, and you can swing backwards and skip doing this long section where you have to slide across like basically like an oil slick and jump between these platforms and jump over vases and try not to look at them because you'll break them, sort of thing. So in general, I was really happy with that as a run. I was a little bit, like I said before, a little bit sad that it didn't get on Speedrun.com, but Speedrun.com isn't the end-all be-all for games. I mean, the videos are obviously still out there. It's not like, oh, because it's not on Speedrun.com, it's not a real speed. The same thing with like your game not getting to GDQ. Your game's value is not determined by someone else's decision to accept or deny something. So in the end, it's not a super important issue. The next one I did was CrowTell Renovations, and I had gone to GDQ and I saw Boyce doing their run of the CrowTell, I guess, version of the game where once you beat the game as the crow the first time through, you unlock that. So I actually hadn't seen the crow portion of the run before. I hadn't seen the game before the marathon, but I hadn't even seen the crow portion until I bought the game and played it myself. So I really enjoyed doing runs of that. Unfortunately, I think the next two games I ran are probably the reason I currently have a brace on my wrist, because it's an extremely mashing intensive game for the boss fights. And I know, like, in terms of like comparing it to other games like Carol Blaster or Cave Story or plenty of mashing games, like the mashing is not intensive in that, but you're talking to someone that is mainly a first person. The most maneuvering I have to do is like occasionally clicking and holding and kind of moving the mouse around. That's the most strain I put my wrist on. So going to like a controller game where I have to like mash with both my hands really intensely, I don't like, historically I don't do a great job with like stretching my hands out and doing stuff like that. So unfortunately, that was why I didn't run that too much, because I enjoyed the run. There's also an issue with, I believe, even NVIDIA graphics card, for some reason, CrowTell's cycles get jacked up. So I can't follow the world records cycles and like follow them exactly, because I think I'd be able to compete decently with the record because my mashing's pretty good. Even though I'm like injuring myself doing it, my mashing's still all right. But because of the cycle thing, it really makes it a struggle to run the game on a competitive level, because I'm having to wait on cycles that you normally wouldn't have to wait out on. I also did, before this, I did my Wild Animal Sports Day Games Done Quick run, which was incredibly fun. But it did make me realize doing that run, I was like, I really enjoy doing these silly runs for GDQ, but man, it's been 2 years. I'd really like to do, like, even if it's like St. Hazel's Hospital is still a more serious run than, Pet the Pup at the Party or Wild Animal Sports Day. Like, it's got skips, it's got stuff I can talk about. Like Wild Animal Sports Day, it's just the shock factor of like, you open up, and I know people are following me from that run and enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it too. It's just me as a runner, I'm a little tired of kind of doing really silly runs for GDQ. The thing I enjoy the most about doing GDQ runs is sitting down. It's like, all right, this is the next 20 minutes. I'm going to teach you something about this game. You're going to get some really interesting insights that you wouldn't get just watching the world record video. This is going to be fun and entertaining because it's interesting and you learn something and it's cool. And you can see the work that I put into it and the practice I put into it, and you can appreciate that. Like, that's how I do GDQ commentary runs. Like, some people, it's just like, it doesn't matter what game they're doing. They're just they're very entertaining and just themselves and just how they talk. And kind of making a performance out of it. And I'm very understanding of the fact that I can't do that. So I don't try to do that. Whenever you do commentary stuff for marathons, even if it's like an online marathon where like 10 people are watching, you can learn from other runners and watching them and how they do commentary, but don't try to be another person when you're up there, because what happens is your brain goes on autopilot when you're up there on the stage. Like I've done this like 7 times. It still does it. Like when you're on the stage, like you just go. You're like, okay, whatever I remember, whatever strats I remember. It's like if I'm commentating, it's like it's just like complete autopilot. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying what I practiced. And for some people, I'm sure it's easier for them. Like if you don't have like any sort of issues with like stage fright or stuff like that, I'm sure it's much easier. But for me, I get pretty big anxiety for like doing stuff in front of people. So for me, it's like very autopilot. Let's go. Let's do what I practiced sort of thing. So I can't really play off of people quite as much like that. But anyways, not to get distracted. So that was CrowTell Renovations, which I really enjoyed. We have Haunted Island Frog Detective game, which I speedrun the newest patch of, or I guess the current patch, I believe. I don't know why that's slower. I didn't see when I was looking at the video why it was slower when I was looking at the old patch runs, but either way. So I did that. I really enjoyed Frog Detective casually, even if it was like really short, like really, really short. Even when you're exploring around and you don't know where everything is, it's real short. So the run is not too long either. It was fun as kind of a, because I'd done CrowTell and that was pretty heavy on my wrists, and I did Narwhal Heist, which was actually a fairly, it took a decent bit of practice. I did 2 runs that I put a lot of time into, so I want to do Frog Detective as kind of a little bit of a brain break where I'm just following my notes and going along and, you know, trying to just follow the series of events, smash a little bit, which of course this game has a lot of text mashing, which was unfortunate right after I did CrowTell. But it was a cool game. in the back of my mind, I regret a little bit because I know, like, Carol Blaster, I could have done Carol Blaster, I could have done Frog Fractions. There's a lot of frog games I could have done that were really cool. So I'm like, I really needed a break. I really needed an easier speed run that I could just kind of do, get a time on the board, spend a stream doing it, enjoy it, but like not have to worry about spending a week learning the run. Like that's a big thing with this for me, since I'm trying to do like 3 runs a month, and especially since I'm going to be having a much busier schedule in the coming, like, 2 weeks from now, I'll have a much busier schedule. I really need to prioritize runs that are easy, like not easy for me to learn, but like stuff that's manageable for me to learn in the time frame that I have. So that's something I'll be having in the back of my mind in February. I did a lot of runs in January, which gives me a little bit of wiggle room for other months. If I don't learn 3 runs, if I learn 2 runs, it's like, okay, well, I learned a lot of runs in January. I kind of can make up for it then. It's a little bit all right because of that. So thankfully I did that, give myself a little bit of wiggle room because I wasn't intending on doing that, and I just kind of went for it. The 11th game I did for the speedrunning challenge was Snails, and it was the only game I could find really that, you got worm games, and every time I think of Snails I always think of the one worm, the worm fighting, not fighting game, but the like side view, like turn-based multiplayer game, the Worms game, that one. There's nothing to do with Snails. I guess I could do that for a worm game later on. I'm sure that's on the list somewhere. But for Snails, I was hoping there was more in it when I was looking for stuff. I was really hoping, okay, we're gonna find some sort of clip, some sort of glitch. I'm sure there is in there. I found a skip where you walk through textures. Like it's supposed to be a solid wall and you can just walk through it, which is hilarious. And it's always funny when you can do something like that. It's just a weird game. It's basically, it's an 8-year-old is being hunted by these snails from outer space, and she has to like go defeat the head honcho snail that's at the like bottom of her, like, I guess elementary school. It's really weird. It tries to emulate PS1 graphics, and it does too good of a job with that, or tries to just emulate PS1 gameplay in general. The guide that comes with the game looks exactly like a strategy guide you'd buy in that time. But yeah, the game itself is like tank controls, real rough. It was funny for what it was. I'm really hoping that I can get somebody else to look at it and really try to find something or try to improve. I mean, the route I don't think can really improve without skips kind of sprinkled into it. I think what I have, I mean, I had to draw maps because the render distance is like 5 feet ahead of you. Like, that's how lost I was getting doing this. So I mean, Snails is funny for having to subject other people to watching it, but beyond that, it was a mess. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll go back to it unless someone finds something for it, or I find something for it when I'm messing around with it. Cause I mean, I'll pull these games up and I'll just like look around for skips and stuff, just randomly, just be like, hey, why not? The next game after that was Deer Simulator, which is the 12th game. Deer Simulator just came out, and I was kind of on the fence about doing a run of it because it is still in early access, and stuff will be changing for it. So the run might become a bit obsolete fairly quickly. And I didn't submit this to speedrun.com. I submit snails to speedrun.com because at least that's like a full game, and the run is longer than 5 minutes, which is apparently the threshold for them to not just immediately boot it out. So we did all waves for that as a fun little category where you are a deer, and it's a combination of like Goat Sim, if you've played that, like a Grand Theft Auto sort of style gameplay almost, along with that, where you are getting the ire of the police and that's like a small aspect of it, where you're getting the ire of the police by like breaking buildings or like not even stealing cars, destroying cars, or like just killing people or something terrible. Like if you do stuff like that, the police will come after you in different waves. So you can do all waves if you defeat all 3 waves of it. But yeah, it's still in early access, so there's only 3 waves, and they're still working on the next 2 of them. So, or next one, whatever they decide to add for that. So it was fun to run. It'll definitely be something I'll go. So if they add more waves to it, I'll come back to it, do more runs for it to feel assured, like, okay, I've not like taken like a beta version of the game, run it like in its simplest form, and been like, oh, I finished the game, I beat it, dust my hands off from that one. I don't want to feel like I'm cheating on this challenge at all, so I'll definitely come back to that as they update it. But I just thought it'd be fun to do a run of it, put that up there, let other people kind of enjoy that. So I mean, Deer Simulator is fine. I think it'll be a funny run, but the run itself is fairly basic with how it is. It's nothing extremely complicated, but it's fun for what it was. In the middle of this, I also did Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, which is a game I found on itch.io. Purely for the just hilarity of the fact that, pretty much the name, I just wanted to post a run of this game with this name. And it was funny because someone else had already run this game, which I was very surprised about. Someone else had already taken the time to speedrun it, to route stuff out and figure out what you need to do to complete the game. I did find some interesting stuff with it, some death warps you can do, kind of optimizing some of the fights, intentionally taking damage that you can die really easily during the run, stuff like that. So like the run itself, for like a 2-minute run, it's got some fun stuff with it, but that is the demo version right now, so I am speedrunning a demo. And yes, a turnip is not an animal. Let me make this clear. This is not part of the animal challenge. This is purely just something I did for fun a random night, like a few nights ago. It's just like, but what if I just run this like game with this ridiculous name, and like the dialogue in the game's hilarious. It's unfortunate you don't get to do it. I did submit it for a marathon. One of the incentives is there's someone that's complaining about their roommate who's a snail, and you can just kill them and then talk with the roommate, and they yell at you for killing. It's just so stupid, and just like a taste of the dialogue for it, and like all the dialogue's like references to like JoJo and just some random stuff, and it's all a mess, but it's hilarious. It's also free if you want to go get it and throw the devs some money so that they can develop it past a demo. I'll put a link to Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, or you can just look it up on itch.io. It's not hard to find if you just look up Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. And then you have Toripon, which is the most recent game I did, which is a game where you take pictures of birds. And the speedrunners take a picture of all 42 birds that's in your apartment, and it's like really cute graph. I mean, just description of the game, you can assume it's just like, it's really cute sort of graphics. It's very like high contrast sort of colors, and it really pops. I mean, the original way you can play it is everything's kind of pixelized, which I just swapped it because I preferred it without that. I kind of wanted to see all the stuff without like a sort of a filter over it. But it's like paparazzi, if you've seen that on Twitter, except birds, basically. And the fun part for me was during the stream, I was just playing it for fun. I was just relaxing. And someone mentioned speedrunning, and I was like, yeah, it's a bird game. I could do that. But then I sat down with it, and I was like, oh, there's some interesting routing of this, because when you take a picture of the bird, certain birds will unlock other birds to appear. So like when you go into the apartment, there's like 20 birds maybe. So there's another 22 birds that have not appeared yet. And by taking a picture of certain birds, it'll make other birds appear in different rooms. So the routing was the really fun part of it for me, where I was sitting there taking notes. I went in a new save file, I would take a picture of a bird. I would see if there was a pop-up that said a new bird had appeared. I would mark it. I would see which bird appeared. Like I would mark all the ones that it started without taking pictures of anything. Then I would take a picture of a bird and see if something would appear because of it. Mark that down. And I just had like pages of notes for this bird game, sitting on stream doing this. And just noting what spawned what, and like figuring out kind of like the intricacies of like the small things going on with the game. Which I just found would be... It's just like a fun part of speedrunning. If you do speedrunning but you've never sat down with a game that's not been routed, and you just sit down and try to figure out stuff with it, it's so much. I mean, it's not for everyone, but it's so much fun. I just enjoy sitting there and just looking through the game and finding stuff. I mean, even if there's like a route that already exists, but just sitting down and be like, why did they do this decision? Like, always question what the developer wants you to do. Be like, do I need to do that? Like, there's this wanted poster here. Do I have to tear it off? Can I just go buy it? There's this conversation that feels like it's kind of necessary, but it's like there a way to avoid it? Do I just ask questions about stuff like, why can I not do that? There's a wall here. Is there a way to get through this wall? This wall's cutting off me from like 20 minutes of time save. Let's look into this wall for a while then. Toripon's out on like much smaller scale for me, so I ended up routing it out, and then I ended the stream, and then I googled around and found on YouTube that someone else had already run Toripon, and they had a better time than me. The only upsetting part about that was that they had somehow gotten a bird to spawn in an order that I thought was impossible, and then I tried it and it was impossible. So I have no clue how they did that, except that they probably played on a different version. So we'll have to downpatch Toripon to do optimal runs of it. I don't know. That'd be hilarious. I'm not going through that much effort for it. Yeah, Toripon I enjoyed just from playing it casually. It was just such a treat I streamed it for like 3 hours for like, did not expect it at all. Just sat down and just speedran it for a while. I did also play I Am Fish in the middle of this. I'm still considering running I Am Fish. But with the fact that I have a wrist brace on right now, it may be a bad idea, because it is one of these games where to move your fin, you have to, and there's an automatic mode for it. It's a little bit slower, so I might do that and kind of cheap out a little bit. But you have to move the analog stick on your controller back and forth to make it move, and the faster you do that, the faster it goes. So I'm considering running that. I will see how my wrist is doing. And I guess we can segue from this. So I played that casually this month. So we can segue from that to what am I doing next month? In terms of animal runs. Oh no, where are my animal runs at? I had them up. There they are. Found it. All right. So in terms of animal runs, I still have EnviroBear on the docket. EnviroBear will be like the easier run to get into in terms of its at its core, it's very simple. EnviroBear is a game where you are a bear that's hibernating, and you get into a car and you drive it around to collect berries and to collect fish. And after you eat enough of it, you can hibernate once you get into your den. So that's the entire thing. That would be for a bear, obviously. That would be the one to be doing for bear. Another one to do is Donut County, which I just finished playing casually this month, which is you're a raccoon that's controlling these holes that are just like absorbing parts of Donut County, and just bring into this pit underground, like the center of the universe, or the center of the world. So that would be really fun to do. It's not a... There's a few portions of it that are... There's some skips you can do. It's a little decently dialogue heavy, which is why you change the language so that the dialogue goes a little bit faster, which is a bit unfortunate. But it would be fun to do. It would be a lot to learn because my first runs of it would be closer to the record right now is closer to a half hour, but first runs of it probably, I'm still ironing stuff out, would still be probably closer to 45, 50, 55, like going that direction, depending on how much I practice. If it's a rougher run, it could be closer to an hour. So that'd be fun to do. I'm considering that definitely. Octodad Dadliest Catch. I know a guide is being worked on for that game, and as soon as that guide comes out, I'm going to sit down and learn it. Because I just think that'd be hilarious. Like, I need to spend more time playing that casually first. I don't want to like run before I walk sort of thing. Which, I mean, it's a valid thing to do that if you want to. But be nice to learn it once that guide comes out, which I believe it'll be coming out next month or after that. No big rush on that. I can do that whenever. Goat Simulator is definitely something I've got my eye on as well. I mean, I did Deer Simulator. I might as well do Goat Simulator. The only thing I would do instead of Goat Simulator would be a Scapegoat, and a Scapegoat would be pretty intensive learning from what I know about the game. So I would have to put some time into that. We were just talking about fish before, but I can also do Freddy Fish, or we found a game called Feudal Alloy, which is basically a fish in a like mechanical suit, which is really fun. I want to do Paddle Box for duck, which is kind of and I don't want to do too many like completely out of left field random games people haven't heard of, but I do want to use the challenge as kind of an opportunity for people to be like, oh, I didn't even know that game existed. That's a really cool game. Paddle Box is a really cool game where you are a boxing duck, and you just it's very Mike Tyson with you're just sitting there, you're boxing, you're ducking and weaving and dodging attacks and encountering sort of thing, which is a type of game I've never run before. And part of this challenge also, what I want to do is just do games new types of games I've not done before, do things that I don't normally do for speedrunning. So that would be fun. DuckTales Remastered's also there, Duck Souls, Duck Game, Charlie the Duck. There's so many duck games. I didn't realize this. Ducks are apparently very popular. There's also Ice Age Scratch Snutty Adventure, which might get pushed back, not the next month, but a little bit further back from that. I do have the game, and I do know there's a fairly active speedrun community, and they've got some very interesting glitches with it. It's just probably a bit too much going on right now in terms of other games I want to run, but definitely, I mean, it's a good squirrel game for speedrunning. There's also Fight Crab, which I really wanted to learn at AGDQ because Teddy was there, and Teddy is the resident Fight Crab runner. So that would be something to do, and it's just hilarious. I mean, just your crabs just fighting each other in like combat, and the way to defeat the other crab is to flip them over and have them stay on the ground for like 3 seconds. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then Pony Island is like, I'll round it out with that in terms of stuff that I'm really actively considering. Pony Island is just like a really wacky game from what I see. I don't know an extremely large amount about it in terms of like how it plays casually, but I've seen runs of it before. And I think that'd be really, really fun and kind of a weird way to run something different. So I think that's what I'm considering right now. In terms of games I'd like to do, Snake Pass is also on there, but I think Snake Pass is also getting pushed back because Snake Pass is a pretty intensive learning game from what I understand about it. But yeah, so February, a lot of plans. I will be a little bit busier in February, so I'm not going to be running. How many games did I do in January? I ran 6 games, probably half of that in February, if that. So we'll see how things go. I'm gonna try my best to learn some stuff in the early portions of February to make up for the fact that in later sections I'll be busy learning a lot of new stuff and all that. So thank you guys for everyone that's watched these and that's suggested games for me, like games you don't see on the list, and people have suggested that stuff. And that's how I found certain games on here. That's how I was introduced to CrowTell based on just seeing another run of it. I've been introduced to plenty of stuff that's on this list just based on people's suggestions, and I really appreciate people reaching out to do that. But for the last time, let's clear this up. Tomatoes are not an animal. Rocks are not an animal. And humans are animals, but that would be kind of boring to do an animal speedrunning challenge and then do a human game. Technically I've already done human game, so I've already done that. I'm just not putting it on the list. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll be posting any new animal runs I do onto here. I'll put the animal speedrunning list in the description. I'll put the link to Toripon, the link to Turnip Boy, both in the description as well. I'll put the playlist of all the animal runs. I'll try to remember to do all this. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will talk with you guys whenever I release another video on here.